Alex
Name and
Goings,
address, please.
707 Johnson Street, Cocoa, Florida. It's not a bad report. It's actually a pretty good report. Case number 18400 and the code enforcement, and that address is 1058 Grove Street. They had some issues and possible violations for bad paint. Their wood on their roof was starting to rot, and they got a code enforcement violation. She did not have funds to take care of that violation, so she eagerly reached out to the community to help her out. I talked to Brian Foss, and to me, it kind of waited too long, and I started getting frustrated, but he actually called me Sunday when we started trying to help her out. So my thing is, we're starting an organization within the community to help out code enforcement with people who doesn't have the funds to get those violations taken care of. I'm not saying we can help out on every single situation, but the small things where you get someone, her husband actually had 2 brain surgeries, and he was an Army vet. So she doesn't have $1,000 to fix a roof or paint. So I'm asking that code enforcement, maybe we could give our phone number, whatever the case may be. If someone has an issue that's small, we can come in as a community to help out with that situation. Because we know everybody doesn't have the same amount of money. Everybody can't, handle all their violations or code enforcement issues. And also, I talked to Brian about code enforcement knocking on doors and actually talking to the residents, because sometimes when they get papers in the mail, or it's kind of threatening, it's scary if you're an elderly woman, to get these things in the mail and you don't have the funds to take care of the situation. So I'm asking for maybe a partnership with our organization to help out people who don't have the money, because they get violated $250 a day, and you have to choose between a light bill and a fence. You're not going to take care of that fence, and then every day it's going to build up on you. Then you get the liens and all the other issues.
Right.
So I'm asking, maybe I could come to the code enforcement and just ask that we can get some sort of a partnership.
Okay.
Go ahead. Mr.
I suggest, Alex, that you do come to a code enforcement board meeting to explain your ideas going forward for that.
Okay.
I think it's an excellent idea, and I do believe that they will listen, because I'm sure that they don't want to continue to levy fines against someone who can't really afford to pay that $250.
Right.
So good idea.
Okay. Okay.
And
We'll.
I suggest you come to the court board meeting.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that.
And they will make an effort to work with
Yeah, they will.
the homeowner in code cases, especially if they know there's a hardship, a financial hardship. So just, if she can't come, if you're going to be her spokesperson or whoever come and speak
Yeah, she was
for
scared.
her.
Yeah, she was scared because she didn't know what to do. All she sees is this, and she just started panicking. So
Yeah, of course. So,
Okay.
Very good.
I'll come to the code enforcement meeting as well.
yes.
All right. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Okay, Alex Greenwood? Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening, Council. Alex Greenwood, 640 Brevard Avenue. I'm sorry, is that better? Do I need to repeat? Alex Greenwood, 640 Brevard Avenue, Cocoa,
Okay.
Florida. I just wanted to keep it simple to the point, because you all got a lot of work here, and I'd like to see you all be able to leave early than it was the last council meeting you were there. The paperwork I gave you, the very last 2 copies are a little dark. If they're not readable, I can supply you with new ones. That's all I wanted to bring to your attention. So
Okay.
feel free to call me, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion approved. Okay, no public hearings tonight. Council business?
The first one is a request from code enforcement to have a lien reduction.
Excuse me. Pull the mic down so we can hear you, please.
Sorry, I thought I was loud enough. The first one is a request from code enforcement for a lien reduction request in the amount of $2,046.55 as recommended by the Code Enforcement Board for the property located at 1111 Northview Drive. There is a correction on that. It should actually be request to the amount of $2,046.55.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Thank you, ma'am.
passed.
Mr. Yardley?
Okay,
Thank you, buddy.
Before the next-
Maybe we should let him talk?
before the next case,
Let's move.
John, we have a card, speaker card for that one, okay? Mr. Lawrence Sinclair.
And might advise you let them, the staff present the case and then
Okay.
open it to
All right.
ma'am.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The second one is a request from code enforcement for a lien reduction for the property located at 1111 Mitchell Street to be reduced from $6,250 to $2,016. The Code Enforcement Board at its regular meeting on July 19th, 2018, recommended that the total lien be forgiven. Staff is recommending council reduce the lien to $2,016, so related city expenses and staff time are reimbursed.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Sinclair?
Now, this is Mitchell Street. I'm hard of hearing.
Yes, sir. I have a
Okay.
card for Mr. Sinclair. I don't
Okay.
think I have a card for you.
All right. My name is Jerry Flick. I'm president of the Housing League, which is a non-profit affordable housing developer. We own the property.
Okay.
We appeared before the board, and they recommended waiver of the fines and fees here. The house is rented to a person that's had a Section 8 for about 10 years, and he has a person that lives with him and takes care of him. Total income is $600 a month. The caretaker rented a utility shed and is represented, which I have here, the documents for it. He thought he was renting it, and it was installed by the utility company, but it was never a building permit. And since he was renting, of course, it was not going to be a permanent structure. I mean, if he moved, he would take it with him. We were cited, the property was cited, or he was cited, and I guess we were cited for illegally putting a utility shed on the property and not having a permit. It took many weeks or a number of months to find a builder, a contractor, that would come and pull a permit on the property. And we finally did, and it finally got installed and everything was cleared out. There was another minor violation that there were two cars and one parking space for one car, and the second car was parked on the lawn, so it got another violation. The lease to them calls for them paying for all these violations. They cannot pay for it. If they cannot pay for it, then we're going to have to pay for the violations, and we're going to have to evict them, and they will lose the Section 8 allocation for rent, which they've had 10 years. The board recommended that all this be forgiven. Everything's been cleared up. Everything is in condition, and I think they would appreciate if you could waive this, because it's their obligation. They're the ones that violated. Do you have basically any questions here? Because they're in a predicament.
We do have a recommendation from the code board.
The recommendations was for forgiveness. Since that time, it came up with a, which I was not aware of until I just saw it here a few minutes ago. They came up with a cost of $2,000.
Yes, sir. Well, the cost of, for this, to the city is approximately $750, whenever a property has a lien on it and the case is brought before code. That's the administrative cost.
Okay, but remember, this cost has to be passed on, not to us, not the property. It's gonna be passed on to someone making $600
I understand.
a month.
I
So
understand.
it's your decision what you wanna do.
Anyone have an opinion on this one?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Sinclair has to say before.
Okay,
We are a nonprofit. We provide affordable housing
I understand, yeah.
to people of the circumstances,
Yeah.
yes. And, you know,
And
a
I
lot
am
of times
familiar
they
with
just
the
don't
case.
know, and you can end up with violations like this. And what I would love for the government to do is to work with them rather than slap them with fines because they need help. They don't know.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you. Okay. Mr. Sinclair?
The reason I put in a card for this is I'm very familiar with the property, and I noticed that it was on the agenda tonight. While I understand the gentleman's claims, it doesn't bear out to reality. The reality is that if you go to 1110 Mitchell Street right now, you will see that it looks like a complete junkyard. Okay? This is not an issue that, as claimed in the application for lien reduction, which I read every bit of it. I read the excuse over the unpermitted shed as being the fault of the company, Superior Sheds. Well, that's funny, because I bought my shed from Superior Sheds and was told point blank I needed to have the permit in order to install it. I also know that there was no permit pulled on that installation back in 2015. I want you guys to remember something. This is 2018. The code enforcement in the city has had nonstop complaints from homeowners and other renters in that neighborhood for going on 3 years. If you go down Mitchell Street to take a right on Pineda, going north on Pineda, you literally have to get in the westbound lane to go east because that property has 15 cars parked in the street all day long. I understand he's saying this is a Section 8 house, and this goes back to one of the arguments that I have come to City Council over and over again about holding housing authority accountable. This is a house that has 23 people in it, and that's no exaggeration. And a member of the code board lives right behind that property and is ready to resign from the code board because they seem to give the organizations that have the money, they didn't have a problem renting it. They didn't have a problem letting multiple people occupy it. They don't have a problem with the poker games going on in the front yard every day of the week. They don't have a problem with the prostitution taking place or the drugs that's being sold on that property. So yes, I personally, and so do my neighbors, and if you want their names and addresses, I will give them to you, needs this property owner, not the renter, the owner. The owner has been made aware of this for 3 years, and they're using their nonprofit status telling you, look, we're doing a service. I looked in their application for reduction. We're about revitalizing and restoring the neighborhood. If you go to that property right now and you forgive these liens against the property owner, then the city is out money they should be collecting, and they need to start holding these investment companies accountable.
I have a question for Mr. Sinclair. Is this the house at the corner of Mitchell and Pineda?
Yes, it is.
I won't be voting to reduce any lien on this property.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve staff recommendation on this agenda item.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you, John. Okay, move on to city business. So,
Yes.
Chief Prince?
Yes, Madam Deputy Mayor, this is City Business 8, number 1. Council approval to submit 3 local mitigation strategy grants through Brevard County Emergency Management. There are 2 fiscal year 2019 Public Works projects, one for $600,000 and one for $400,000. One Cocoa Utilities project for $844,000 for fiscal year 2022. If funded, these grants will provide 75% of the funding for projects with a 25% match required of the city. The Hazard Mitigation Program is a FEMA program that provides grant funding after a presidentially declared disaster. And they're administered through a local mitigation strategy program, which for us is run through Brevard County. To be eligible, you have to be a member of the committee. I serve as the city's representative on that committee. When these came up, these grants became available, I talked to Ed in Public Works and Jack in the utility about possible grants that they may have. One of the limiting factors applying for these grants is it has to be shovel-ready, which means all your engineering and planning have to be done, and you have to be ready to go out and start working on the project immediately. Usually by the time you get there, you have funding of some kind. So these 3 projects were identified for the city. We submitted them. What happens is you get together, the committee votes on whether to include them in the project list, which they were included in the list, and then they're scored according to what they do. Some of the things you have to meet is it has to be consistent with the state hazard mitigation program, provide a long-term solution to the mitigation effort if you're trying to reduce flooding. It has to be a long-term project. It has to be identified in our local LMS list, be technically feasible, and they also have to go, once they're submitted and they're approved as being officially on the list, they have to meet a cost-effectiveness criteria. The State Department of Emergency Management takes care of that, and that's where they are right now. Because of the timing of the grants and when the grant cycle was, when it had to be in, we went ahead and submitted them based on the deadline, but we're here tonight seeking approval to have these remain as grants. It could take anywhere from 12 to 18 months to hear at the end of whether you got funded or not, but what we do know is there's a little over 13.5 million available in Brevard County with a number of projects and their level of requested funds. Our project should fall within the first tier of being granted. So we're looking forward to that. So we're asking that you approve the submittal of these grants to the Department of Emergency Management. And I would ask Ed if he would go ahead and talk a minute or so on his 2 grants, and then we'll ask Deputy Utilities Director Kate to do
Okay.
hers.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure. The 2 projects that we put up for funding, one of them, I see Larry walked out, was Broadmoor Acres drainage swales. Basically, during Hurricane Irma, the unusual storm, October 1st, 2017, I was actually driving around that night, and both School Street, which just to the south of Broadmoor, and Broadmoor itself was heavily flooded. So we came up with an idea to supplement the rear lot swales with some front yard swales that would take water to a new drainage system. So water from the back of the lots can go to the back, water from the road and the front of the lots would be handled in the swales. It means digging up everyone's front yard, replacing driveways, and our request for that was $400,000. That leads into the next one. The water from Broadmoor flows, a lot of it flows to the east, some to the south, some to the west, but the water that flows to the east would go to Fisk Boulevard. And guess what we're doing on Fisk Boulevard? That's the last portion of Fisk Boulevard to be upgraded, complete streeted, whatever you want to call it. But we do have plans, well, at the time of the grant, they were 90% complete. Right now, they're probably 100% complete. So they're ready to go. The city does have funding next year to implement both of these projects. A lot of it's coming from stormwater, so, you know, we submitted for these grants. The upside is, could be $1 million. The downside is it could take a while, and the grants do not refund any work already complete. So Fisk and Broadmoor will be kind of in a hold until we find out whether the funding's coming through.
Okay. All right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
John?
Oh, Katie.
There's a
Right.
sewer one, too.
Sorry. I'll be real quick.
Utilities.
Oh, you have one too, okay.
Yeah, we have one.
What?
Lift Station 1, which is located on Oleander Point on Riverside Drive.
Oh, okay, there it
The
is.
current lift station is a dry well.
I must have missed something here.
We good? Oh,
No, no.
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. It's a dry well, and also there's no generator on the current lift station. So it's within feet of the lagoon. So there's a potential there for during hurricanes for influent to flood the dry well and damage equipment that's in there. The proposed project would be to replace that with a wet well system and also add a generator out there, a permanent generator, which would also help with worker safety because it would eliminate a confined space entry. So.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Motion to approve?
Yes,
Brenda?
second.
Who first?
Don,
Don, you were
motioned,
first?
I seconded.
Okay. Brenda second?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passed.
Sorry about that, Katie.
That's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Katie, I think you're up again.
Yes. Approve a resolution amending the fiscal year 2018 budget to allow for emergency repairs of groundwater filter number 5, to authorize the city manager to execute and approve change order number 2 to PO 72151, project WS 18FM.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passed. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see. Moving on to, okay, Laura? Oh, I'm sorry, no, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, council members. Item number 8.3 is to approve preliminary assessment resolution 2018-068 for fire protection assessment for fiscal year 2019. At this meeting, staff is recommending that City Council approve the preliminary assessment resolution, which includes a 3% increase. The final assessment resolution will be presented for consideration at a public hearing on September 5th at 5:30 p.m. The rates are included in the agenda item, and staff is available if you have any questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions on this item?
No.
No?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, let's see, moving right along. Let's see.
Okay,
Next item is Karen.
yes, so we're going to have a brief presentation, and then I'll be asking the board to approve a final subdivision consistent with Chapter 18 of the City of Cocoa Code for Lakeside Palms LLC, 103-lot subdivision consisting of approximately 26.2 acres located at 100 Clear Lake Road, subject to conditions detailed in the staff comments section in this agenda item.
All right, technology caught up. Okay, so this item is the final subdivision for Lakeside Palms. The applicant is Andy Kerbach with Morgan & Associates, and the property ownership is Lakeside Palms LLC. They're requesting approval of a final subdivision consistent with Chapter 18 of the code to subdivide one parcel into 103 single-family lots. The location is on Clear Lake Road, south of 520. You can see it in red there, just to the north of Rockledge's Stormwater and Recreation Park. this is a layout of the plat. The application was reviewed by city staff for consistency with Chapter 18 of the city code. And we have also looked at some of the preliminary subdivision plan work that was done. Building, police, fire, utilities, reuse had no comments. The landscaping plans are not submitted yet, so we don't have comments yet on from the arborist. Fire looked at it as well and determined that the hydrants met the code, and also that the turning radius requirement would be satisfactory as long as on-street parking was prohibited. And then utilities and public works have additional comments. Staff also consulted with the surveyor, Mr. Packard. He indicated that he had some, as he had expressed them, minor comments that needed to be addressed. And also, I believe he had some outstanding fees. The applicant will be also required to provide a performance bond prior to recording of the final plat for the preliminary work that has yet to be completed or accepted by the city. The applicants indicated that they'll post a $2 million performance bond, which would exceed the 110% that is the projected actual cost requirement for the remaining work. Also, prior to acceptance of the site improvements by the city, the applicant will be providing a maintenance bond of at least 10% of the construction cost estimated for all improvements. And they've indicated they would provide that for a 2-year period. And lastly, that applicant has stated that they would like to construct model homes on the site. And so the city is going to be drafting a model home development agreement to address that, which would need to be completed as well before the final plat is recorded. The preliminary was approved August 14th of last year by the Planning and Zoning Board, and August 22nd of last year by the City Council. So the recommendation from staff is approval of the final subdivision with subject to conditions that were mentioned already in your staff report. The applicants here, if you have questions of them, they're able to respond.
Anybody have questions? No? No? Okay.
No.
Do you have anything to say? No? Okay. I
Okay.
make a motion we approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you, Dodie. Okay, next item on the agenda is Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Deputy Mayor, members of council. This item is an ordinance 8-2018. It's the first reading. It's related to changes to the police officer's retirement plan consistent with the memorandum of understanding between the City of Cocoa and the Coastal Florida Police Benevolent Association regarding the PBA collective bargaining agreement effective October 1st, 2015 to September 30th, 2018, amending Section 2-191 definitions and Section 2-220 share plan. Just by way of background, earlier this year, in the process of, as you know, we doing our, we pay our pensions in a timely fashion. It was determined that we'd collected on holiday pay, we had collected, employee contributions. And a strict interpretation of the ordinance was that holiday pay, because the ordinance went from total earnings to base pay plus state and funded incentives and up to 150 hours of overtime. So based on that, it's similar fashion, FRS, Florida Retirement System, that's considered a bonus check and it's not counted toward pensionable purposes. So based on that interpretation, which based the ordinance, refunds were made to officers for their pension contributions, and it brought to light an issue of which, as you are aware, once we were made aware of it, one, we did refund the pension contributions, but we also sought to get clarification with our actuary in terms of whether or not holiday pay was considered in their evaluation of base pay. It was not the intent, and so we came to you and you approved us to retain the actuary. It's normally best practice every 3 to 5 years to replicate and validate the results of the actuarial evaluation reports. We did that, and as part of that, it had been determined that the holiday pay was not clearly identified as part of the proposed changes in the 2015 bargaining. In good faith, the city administration wanted to make this right in fairness to the union and its members, and we recommended, if you recall, that the holiday pay be added back in retro to the October 1st date to be compensable toward pensionable earnings. At the time, we believed on a preliminary analysis that it was going to increase the annual required contribution to the police pension by about $76,000. However, subsequent to our meeting, the police pension board, based on a recently completed actuary experience study, they approved several plan assumptions to include in decreasing their 8% assumed rate of return to 7.5%, which is something you're seeing happen nationwide. It's actually a very responsible move on the part of the police pension board. And so based on that, we had Bolton, the city's actuary, reanalyze the actuarial impact, and based on the approved assumption changes, the impact to the annual required contribution would now be at $52,000. We did enter into, I entered into a memorandum of understanding with the PBA to document how we would make this change. The officers, through this year's holiday pay, will pay the 6.5% that was previously reimbursed, and the city's going to put its contribution in at the end of the year, and this makes the officers whole. Again, as I think I emphasized to you on several occasions, it's the right thing to do. It's not what was contemplated, and I understand the strict interpretation of the ordinance, and this is one that just, we're doing the right thing. So the city's pension attorney, Jim Lynn, did draft the proposed ordinance. The ordinance was presented to the pension boards, or pension plan's attorney, and as well as the plan administrator. So you have a copy of the original Article 16 of the pension plan, along with the definition, and you can see part of the way down where we have included in the underlying holiday pay. However, it also does, what was originally intended. It excludes all other forms of pay, such as ad pays and things like that. And then there's just a cleanup language related to the share plan. That's something that it's going to have to be done with the other pension plan as well, because it's a share plan that's not being funded until such time and determined by both parties in the future. So with that, again, the budgetary impact's $52,000. We have funds budgeted for our pension, our annual required contributions. Commend the council that the city's never taken a pension holiday, or as some people call it, and not paid its annual required contribution. And so we're requesting approval of the ordinance 8-2018 on the first reading, related changes to the police officers' retirement plan consistent with a memorandum of understanding between the City of Cocoa and Coastal Florida Police Benevolent Association regarding PBA collective bargain agreement effective October 1st, 2015 to September 30, 2018. Amendment section 2-191 definitions and section 2-220 share plan. And the only other thing I would like to add is city administration would like to thank City Council for your expressed support, in the executive work session, as well as want to thank the Central Florida PBA, for their patience and their members as we promised we would work this out and make it right.
Yeah.
I'll return it to council.
Okay.
I think city attorney needs to,
Do you have a question, Mr. Wolf? No?
I think the city attorney needs to,
I just need to, just
Do
read
the
it in by title.
resolution? Yeah.
Ordinance number 2018, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Brevard County, Florida, amending Chapter 2 Administration, Article 7, Police Officers Retirement Plan of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cocoa by amending Section 2-191, definitions, amending Section 2-20, Share Plan, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. This is first reading. Deputy Mayor.
Motion to approve. I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, thank you, John.
I'll be doing the next one.
Okay.
Council will recall at the last meeting, we presented to you, actually a series of amendments to the master resolution for the bond. We presented you to our bond documents for master resolution. We also presented you an advanced refunding for 2009A and 2009B. And then we presented to you a resolution for new money for the new projects that the city utility system will be undertaking. Since that meeting, and I know all of you are aware, in the discussions in our budget workshops, is, there was the issue out there looming or unknown in terms of the 2010 BABS bonds or the Build America bonds that we receive a subsidy, federal subsidy on the interest. It's come to our attention, in working with bond counsel, city attorney, underwriters, our financial advisor, finance department, that we are able to do an advanced refunding of those bonds. And please keep in mind as a reminder, the advanced refunding is a practice where we, outstanding bonds are refinanced by the proceeds of a new bond issue. This will be tied to the new money issue. You'll have a 2018B and 2018C. And the purpose is to take advantage of the interest rates, that are typically lower and with the original bond issue. The city does maintain a debt management policy. It's contained in the city's financial operations manual, specifically section 21.2F. And it defines when it's advantageous, legally permissible, prudent, and a net present value of at least 3% is provided. The city is requesting to essentially approve Resolution 2018-072, authorizing the issues of the Water and Sewer System Refunding Revenue Bond Series 2018C, and those would be known as the 2018C refunding bonds, not to exceed $30 million to refund the Water and Sewer System Revenue Bonds Series 2010, which are the federally taxable Build America bonds with a direct subsidy. It should be noted that, again, you previously authorized the negotiated sale of the Series 2018B by Resolution 2018-060, which was adopted, August 14th, and it's desirable to include this advanced refunding as part of that in order to save in the issuance cost as well as to expedite the sale of the bonds. The Series 2018C tax exempt refunding bonds will be at an interest rate, currently approximated at 5%. And upon issuance, $4 million, and there's a little bit of a correction here, I apologize, but $4 million will be transferred into the Debt Service Reserve Fund. If you see in the sources of funds in I know it's a lengthy offering sheet, but about $4.8 million will go in the Debt Service Reserve Fund. The net present value savings is just over $2 million, or 8.46%. Again, approximated. Obviously, we got to go out to the market, but we feel pretty confident. The Fed's not meeting until November, and this will be closed in early October. And as previously indicated, given the fluidity of the upcoming refunding transaction and the numerous documents involved in the transaction, as in the case here, we had to amend and revise the preliminary official statement, the bond purchase agreement, and the continuing disclosure certificate that was attached to that original resolution. we are asking, as part of the agenda item, that you authorize myself and the mayor in consultation with the city's bond team to be given the authority to make technical modifications to the refunding documents to the extent necessary prior and to the pre-closing on the upcoming transaction, and that the mayor be authorized to execute the final version of the resolution incorporating any necessary technical amendments. So with that, again, this is an opportunity to, it's just almost under $2.1 million if the rates hold true by the time we hit the market, and about 8.46% net percentage savings of the refunded bonds. So we think this is a good opportunity, and was one we were hoping that would happen, and it just so happened to occur after we did a lot of work beforehand. So we're bringing it back because time is of the essence in our opinion. So I'll return to council for any questions or comments.
No? Any questions?
No.
No? Okay.
No question.
Motion to approve?
Second.
No.
Oh, I thought Kevin made the motion.
Yes, I'll make the motion to approve the request.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you, John.
Thank you, ma'am. I want to thank finance, our city attorney, our underwriters, our finance manager, our financial advisor, and our bond counsel, because
That was a lot of work.
we did a lot of work,
Yeah.
Matt as well.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. It was a lot of work, so. Okay. Let's see. Do you have any members of the audience?
No.
That would, on a board or
Advisory boards.
advisory board that'd like to speak tonight? No? Okay. All right, we'll go with staff reports. Ed?
Just a few quick things. Our projects, since we're at the end of the year, getting close to being done. Stone Street, they will be milling this week, the asphalt, so might not be a good time to go on Stone Street unless you have need to. Paving will be next week. So milling this week, paving next week. The concrete work is substantially complete, so it's moving along. The Riverfront Connector also is moving along, as well as the community meeting room in the heart of Cocoa. Also, want to give you an update on our baffle box. We received funding from St. Johns River Water Management District. We got the check, $56,634. And we're also in the process of applying to the Save Our Indian River Lagoon of Brevard County, an approximately $59,000 amount. So that their board, their year ends, of course, October 1st, and they will be considering funding this year and next year.
Oh, great. Good.
That's it.
Very good. Great. Okay. Rebecca?
I would like to thank council support for the fire assessment and also the additional refunding on the Build America bonds. That should result in good cost savings for the city. And also would like to inform council that the city's auditors are here this week, and they're doing what they call interim work, where they go in and they test internal controls to obtain assurance that the city is following their policies and procedures. And then they'll come back in January to actually finish up the audit of the financial statements.
Okay, thank you. Okay. John?
No, ma'am, other than wishing everybody a happy upcoming holiday weekend. Drive safe and have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. Chief?
Just want to remind everybody that the 9/11 Memorial event will be on September 15th at 6 p.m. at Cocoa High School, where we'll be honoring those that fell on 9/11.
That's
So
the
invite 'em to come
Cocoa
out
High
and participate.
Stadium, the new Dick Blake Stadium.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be there.
I'll be there.
Yeah, okay. Karen?
Good evening. The COCO CRA plan is being updated, and we're going to be having a series of public meetings. The first is a public workshop here in council chambers tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Then will there be a special COCO CRA meeting next week, Tuesday, that's September 4th at 5 p.m. And the following week, special planning and zoning meeting. Is it too much? Okay, as well. So just encouraging you all to come out, and it's
And tomorrow night
periodically-
is at 5.
It's at 5, yes.
Okay, okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay, Katie?
Oh, no reports.
Oh, no report? Okay. Carrie?
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Assistant City Manager?
No report.
Okay. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, I have a couple things. First, I do want to try to do this at the end, but we did attempt to reach out, and we provided Reverend Dennis a copy of the memo, and I requested the opportunity. My secretary Kathy spoke with him, and he
Okay.
declined a meeting.
He declined?
Declined the meeting. And I'll follow up with Kathy tomorrow, because I know if you read the memo, a lot of some of the things that were
Yeah.
alleged, there was a couple things with regards to Ms. Lennar, and there's one items on which there may be, at least there's an inquiry on. So there's that. I will follow up with Ed, because I know in 2015, the city retained KSA, and we did Decider Road and sidewalk analysis. And with regard to Derby Street, I know we did some work. I think we grinded down a safety hazard. I think it's an issue of, do we repair it, or do we replace the entire sidewalk? And it's, if I recall correctly, might be somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. I think it was grinded down, but we'll go out there, and we'll verify the current conditions, and report back to council. And I do need to comment, I know you have a letter here from Mr. Brown, and I just would like to clarify that the action of the first reading, the zoning amendment, was just that. It was a zoning amendment. It was not, support of a project, the hotel.
Correct.
And at the next CRA meeting, part of this is correct. If you recall, there were several members of the public that requested to see, they requested some level of expertise and technical ability that the city staff currently does not have technologically, or have even if they don't have software and/or the ability to provide the graphical representation, to provide the context, I think, that the public expressed concern over. And if you're going back to it happened at the CRA meeting, but staff previously expressed concern over the propriety of the height, whether or not it was appropriate. So the staff will be going back to the CRA. It is their requested amendment, and requesting that they retain. Our intent is to try to, since Pete Seckler was the consultant, with that plan, as well as the waterfront master plan, to see if we can retain him to provide the technical expertise to do the land use, and also be able to show you visually, I think, what the public is asking for. And I think and I understand, Mr. Brown's letter, but these are some of the things that we've expressed previously, and I think, with all due respect, I think, it's staff recommendation that we do that, and we are going to recommend that to the CRA board, that we retain the proper consultant, so we can schedule that meeting, and it can be, the public can really see the impact, and, if there is
Right.
any, because they may look at it and say, oh, that's not as bad as I thought, because I think, as several pointed out, the yellow box is hard to see from a distance until you get up close. So we think that it needs to be, we just don't have the
There
resources.
was something a little more tangible that they can actually.
That's the idea, as well as the analysis. We've been looking at it, in terms of whether it needs to be all the properties? Is there, there's an alleyway there, maybe it needs to be redefined. We've talked about, I've had discussions with the attorney in terms of, could you, more narrowly construe the ordinance, or for that zoning district to accomplish something that meets the needs of the community, balances the concerns of the community, and also potentially provides an opportunity that facilitates redevelopment, whether it be this project or another project in the future. So that's just kind of an update on that. And just this Friday, I will be out, and with the packet, I will be more than glad to meet and speak with any of you regarding the packet I provided at your desk.
Okay,
And I want to thank council.
thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
I have no report.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilwoman Warner?
Just a couple things, Madam Deputy Mayor. On December the 15th, which is a Saturday evening, there will be a ceremony in Orlando honoring our officer, K-9 Copper, the national award he's being given. If anybody from council would like to attend, it's at the Orange County Convention Center. Just let me know in the next month or so I can obtain tickets.
Weren't there three possible, three dogs that were chosen that could possibly?
Well, there's a total
Or
of...
is it a certain category?
Yeah, there's a total of 5
Okay.
chosen in different categories. The AKC has chosen Copper as the AKC Humane Fund K-9 Police Officer of the Year. And so that ceremony will take place on October 15th at the Orange County Convention Center. And for anybody who, from the police department or council that would like to attend, I can acquire tickets. I just need to know in advance.
Oh, okay, very good.
So, or you can wait around until after the first of the year and watch it on TV, either way. Because he will be on TV. And I've had a couple of citizens question as to why we are allowing Reverend Dennis to speak when he's not a resident of Cocoa and he's not speaking about his water bill. So I would ask that the city attorney explain why Reverend Dennis is allowed to come in to council meetings and speak about something when he doesn't live in the city of Cocoa. Citizens are asking me, why are we letting him talk? He doesn't live here. He's not talking about his water bill. Why is he allowed to speak under delegations?
Well,
A couple of years ago, if you,
do you have some additional information for me, John?
I didn't know.
I don't even know if he was a resident or not.
He's
not a
of the
resident, but
city.
if you recall, under Senator Gardner's leadership a couple years ago, and we went back to the legislature and we tried to ask him to narrow it, to residents, and there was an issue, but the legislature opened up the door that any member of the public, somebody visiting from Brazil, could come in and comment on any matter. And I don't know so that's why we've not, and it's an issue that's come up before council, so that's why.
Well, because if you read our rules, it says if you're going to get up and speak, you either need to be a resident or you need to be speaking about your water bill, or you need to be speaking, if you're a taxpayer to the city of Cocoa, you can speak about your issues in regards to the city. So I've had 3 people say, why does he get to talk? So I'm just asking for an explanation because I couldn't give them an explanation that they felt was, I thought it had something to do with the legislature, but I couldn't specifically remember.
Well, I'll be happy to talk to John about this and look into this a little bit more, but, there is the law that if there's an item that's on agenda or a proposition is going to be decided by the city council,
Yeah.
that members of the public have a right to speak before the council takes final action on that disposition.
But he's speaking under delegations.
But we have an open delegations portion of the meeting, which is reserved for just certain items. So I'd be happy to take a look in a little more detail.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, I just don't know enough about his.
Oh, that's me. I couldn't answer the
background.
question, which is why I'm asking.
But I'd be happy happy to look at it further with the manager.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sorry if I stepped out of my lane, Anthony.
I think that's good that somebody brought it up, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't answer the question, so I thought I'd ask you guys. That's it for me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Don?
Yeah, I got a couple of things I want to say. Thank you to everyone who showed up at that town hall meeting. Great turnout, good presentation by city staff. And everybody, we had some first timers there and they were really impressive on the presentation and the turnout that we had, the #1 turnout in the city. And thank you for coming. And then also I had the pleasure of attending the Tux and Tail thing on Saturday night. It was a good thing, and Copper got a standing ovation because Wayne Ivy, Sheriff Ivy, introduced them and to the crowd, and he said that he wanted to join the sheriff's department, but he figured he'd go to #1 outfit instead. He went to Cocoa.
Sheriff Ivy's jealous.
Yeah, everybody's jealous. Everybody wants Copper, and I just want to thank everyone for showing up, and God bless, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Whipple?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say to Don, thank you for the hospitality for your town hall meeting. It was excellent, and had a nice time out there. It was informative by staff, and I appreciate the hospitality. It was excellent. Also, I wanted to make mention about Diamond Square Redevelopment Agency, the items that's on that board's agenda. They're on point. And I want to thank all of the Diamond Square members, the board members, for attending the meeting and for the update that we received on the Stone Street streetscape. That's in progress, and hopefully by September, 30th, we'll have that done. Hopefully that'll take place. Also on the Dr. Jolie Smith Center, we're on point with that as well. The CRA is partnering with the city in the development of the new Jolie Smith Center. And I won't get into the meat of the program, but it's on the way. It's going to take place. Also, the community garden, the city and Diamond Square Board has approved the amenities for the garden, and we're going forward with that as well. Also, the Rosalie Jones, there's a bench that is carved out of wood that's not from, hopefully that our Department of Maintenance didn't build that bench, but it's made out of wood, homemade, and I think it'll be replaced with an upgraded bench and cover on Rosa L. Jones Street. Hopefully that'll come into fruition as well. Also, I want to, you say something?
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Also, I want to thank all the city employees for the job that they're doing. Thank you all for your dedication. Thank you for what you do for the citizens of this community. Keep up the good work. That's all I have, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Whipple. I don't really have a lot to go over tonight. I had a personal tragedy in my family that we had to attend to this last couple of weeks that I do apologize because that preoccupied a lot of my personal time, but I just want to say that I want to thank everyone for the outpouring of condolences and sympathy, and my family really appreciates that. So I just wanted to say that. That's a personal remark for myself and my family. Also, want to mention that the Walmart Distribution Center did have their ribbon cutting ceremony on August 22nd, and we had a large turnout. Of course, their employees were there, which they have a very enthusiastic team of employees, do they not? I mean, it was fantastic. Mayor and myself, Councilman Boebert and Councilman Whipple were all in attendance. Governor Rick Scott was there to do the official ribbon cutting, and so I want to thank Walmart for their hospitality that day. And it was a very, very successful ribbon cutting ceremony and a great day for the city of Cocoa. So I want to say thanks to Walmart for being such a good steward of the community as well. They gave out $16,500 in scholarships that day to local organizations. So, and that's not uncommon for them. This is how Walmart participates in their communities where they're located. And of course, today was election day, so I hope we all got out there and voted. I know I did. So. And this race was very important. When I went to vote before I came here tonight, the poll worker where I was at said that they were watching the numbers come in, and they were getting 6,500 votes an hour. For a primary, that's almost unheard of. I mean, that kind of turnout, 23% at that point, and that was at like 5:30 today. So that just tells you how important this year the races have become to the citizens. So, you know, you've heard it 1,000 times. Every vote counts. So I hope we all participated today, and that we are blessed to live in a country where we have that privilege. So, you know, just keep that in mind, folks, because there's lots of places in this world where they don't have the opportunity to do what we could do today. So, and that's all I have to say. So thank you to all the staff tonight for all the reports.
Madam Deputy Mayor, can I just add,
Sure.
because I think really the Walmart Distribution Center, it's a big success story for the city and the
Absolutely.
region. It represents a $155 million private capital investment in the city, 460 jobs, 400 of which they've already filled. The average annual wage is $41,000. And when you consider that our median household income in the city of Cocoa is $32,000 and the per capita income is $21,000, we did work with Career Source Brevard, Larry, Samaya. I mean, it's just a group of people. I mean, and then the reality is, I can tell you that a lot of the utilities, public works, fire, building and permitting, they all really came through in the end to make sure that happened. And I want to thank all the staff, because I know there were they had some schedules, and you all had to be flexible in terms of meeting those demands. But it's a significant project, and there's 123 more acres to the east of them that would represent additional economic development opportunity for the city.
Yeah.
For those that have been around and watched that property and recall the original intent and how long it sat there, to see it developed is
It is. It's a feather in the cap for the city, to be honest with you. Yeah, because you're right. That property sat there for a long time and wasn't touched.
I think I voted on the first thing that was approved for that property.
Remember going to the RPC
And
defending the
I want to
property.
say that the vice president of Walmart was there, the one that complimented Cocoa.
Vice
High
president,
praise
yes.
for Cocoa,
Mhm.
and thanking Cocoa for the cooperation 100%, and working with them on all the little things that needed to be done. And he really pushed that Cocoa was responsible for bringing the jobs to Cocoa, not
Said we had the
Tallahassee or
most
anybody else.
enthusiastic
He
mayor
credited our
we've
city
ever seen.
manager, the planning department, and the city in general for working with them 1,000% to get things done and get it rolling. And that I thank you to the city staff for working with them and making this project happen. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we'll have more projects coming up in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Don. That's a good point. Thank you, John. Yeah. Anybody else have anything they'd like to report on tonight? No? Okay.
Motion adjourned.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Don't you get up, we gotta talk.